Nestled deep in the heart of Appalachia lay the town of Havenwood. A veil of mist perpetually shrouded the towering pines, their branches twisting like gnarled fingers. Generations of townsfolk had learned to respect the woods, for within its shadowy embrace, darkness held dominion. They told of creatures that haunted the woods, their eyes glowing with an eerie light. But some never returned at all, their fates forever shrouded in the mysteries of the deep woods. Sarah Evans was as much a part of Havenwood as the towering pines and the winding creek that snaked through its heart. Her laughter had echoed through the town square, her bright smile a beacon of warmth in the often chilly mountain air. She was young, barely out of high school, with a spirit as wild and untamed as the woods themselves. Sarah knew the woods like the back of her hand, every twist and turn of the path, every hidden grotto and sun-dappled clearing. She had spent countless hours exploring its depths, her laughter mingling with the rustling leaves and the chirping of unseen birds. The forest held no fear for her. It was her sanctuary, her escape from the confines of small-town life. But one crisp autumn evening, as the sun began its descent, casting long shadows across the forest floor, Sarah vanished without a trace. She had gone for her usual evening walk, promising her mother she wouldn't be long. But as darkness descended and the hours ticked by, a chilling silence settled over Havenwood. The search parties combed the woods for days, their flashlights cutting through the darkness, their voices calling out her name. But the forest remained tight-lipped, its secrets buried deep beneath a blanket of fallen leaves. As days turned into weeks and weeks into months, hope began to dwindle like the fading light of autumn. The cave lay hidden deep within the woods, its mouth concealed by a curtain of tangled vines and moss-covered rocks. It was an ancient place, its entrance shrouded in shadow, its depths unexplored by human eyes. The air hung heavy with the scent of damp earth and something else, something primal and unsettling. Local legend held that the cave was home to something ancient and powerful, something that demanded respect, even fear. Children were warned to stay away, their imaginations running wild with tales of creatures that lurked in its depths. Even the most seasoned hunters avoided the area, their instincts screaming at them to turn back. The entrance to the cave was like a gaping maw, swallowing the light and casting long distorted shadows across the forest floor. The air grew noticeably colder as one approached, a chill that seemed to seep into the very bones, sending shivers down the spine. The silence here was absolute, broken only by the occasional drip of water from the moss-covered ceiling. It was a place of secrets, a place where the veil between worlds seemed thin, where the impossible felt tantalizingly close. And it was here, in this forgotten corner of the woods, that Sarah Evans had disappeared. What had she seen in those dark depths? What horrors had she witnessed in the heart of the mountain? Sarah Evans painted sunsets with her laughter. She was sunshine bottled in Havenwood, born under ancient mountains. Her spirit was wild and untamed. Life was an adventure, a symphony of moments. At 22, she was a whirlwind of dreams. She worked at the local bakery, her passion in her paintings. Her canvases hung proudly in the local diner. She dreamed of showcasing her art to the world. Love blossomed with Mark, a young carpenter. Their love was a quiet understanding. They whispered promises under the starlit sky. Life was a canvas waiting for Sarah's touch. She embraced each day with open arms. Little did she know fate had a cruel twist in store. October 27th dawned crisp and clear, the air heavy with the scent of pine and damp earth. The leaves, ablaze in hues of crimson and gold, whispered secrets on the wind. It was a day like any other in Havenwood, but for Sarah Evans, this day would mark the beginning of an ordeal. She had promised Mark she wouldn't be long. Humming a cheerful tune, she disappeared into the woods. Her mother, worried, tried her daughter's cell phone. Darkness descended, blanketing the town in a silence. Search parties were hastily assembled, their voices calling out Sarah's name. But the forest remained tight-lipped, its secrets guarded jealously. Days melted into weeks, each sunrise a cruel reminder of Sarah's continued absence. The once vibrant colors of autumn surrendered to the stark grays and browns of approaching winter. The search parties returned empty-handed, their determination replaced by grim acceptance. Rumors, like tendrils of smoke, curled through the town, heavier than any truth. Some spoke of Sarah running off, seeking a life beyond Havenwood. Others whispered of darker possibilities, their voices hushed. The woods, once Sarah's sanctuary, now stood as a silent sentinel. The wind seemed to carry whispers of Sarah's name, haunting and heartbreaking.
"Hello there," he called out, his hand raised in a gesture of peace. "Are you all right? Can you hear me?"
3 months had passed since Sarah Evans vanished without a trace in the Havenwood woods. A flash of color pierced through the monochrome landscape. It was a figure huddled at the base of a towering pine. As they drew closer, they realized it was a young woman, her clothes torn and filthy. Her eyes, wide and unseeing, stared out from a face that seemed to have aged a lifetime. Section 2. Shadows of a Broken Mind. As the hikers gently coaxed the woman towards their makeshift campsite, her movements were slow and hesitant, like those of a wounded animal. Her eyes, once filled with the spark of life, now seemed clouded, lost in a world only she could perceive.
They huddled around her, sharing their meager supplies of food and water, their initial fear giving way to a growing sense of unease.
"What's your name, dear? Can you tell us what happened?"
"Sarah."
The name hung in the air, heavy with unspoken horrors. The hikers exchanged startled glances, their minds racing with questions. Could this be the Sarah Evans, the young woman who had vanished from Havenwood 3 long months ago? The woman, as if sensing their thoughts, began to rock back and forth, a low moan escaping her lips. her fingers gnarled and calloused, clutched at the blanket wrapped around her shoulders, her eyes wide with a terror that sent shivers down the spines of those who witnessed it. It was clear that Sarah, if indeed that was her name, was teetering on the precipice of madness. The trauma she had endured, whatever it may have been, had shattered her mind, leaving behind only fragments of memories, shards of horror that pierced through the veil of her sanity. John, realizing the gravity of the situation, made a decision. They would get Sarah back to Havenwood, to safety, to whatever semblance of normalcy awaited her. Little did they know the horrors Sarah had witnessed were far from over. Section 3, The Weight of Silence. The journey back to Havenwood was slow and arduous. Sarah, bundled in layers, moved like a ghost, her silence amplifying the eerie stillness. The hikers exchanged worried glances, their minds racing with unanswered questions. As they approached town, a figure emerged from the tree line. It was Mark, Sarah's boyfriend, his face a mask of grief. A strangled cry escaped his lips. The reunion unfolded in a flurry of tears and hushed whispers. Mark embraced Sarah, his arms tightening around her. Word of Sarah's return spread through Havenwood like wildfire. Section 4, Whispers of the Unspeakable. The authorities arrived at the Evans home, casting a pall over the joyous atmosphere. Sheriff Davis approached Sarah with cautious optimism.
Sarah, we're so glad you're back.
Sarah remained silent, her gaze distant. The medical examiner's chilling discovery sent a collective gasp through the room. Sarah, missing for 3 months, was 8 weeks pregnant. What had she encountered in the heart of the mountain? The sterile, fluorescent light of the interrogation room seemed to amplify the tremors that racked Sarah's frail body. She sat huddled in a hard-backed chair, a thin blanket pulled tight around her shoulders, her eyes darting nervously around the room as if seeking escape from the unseen terrors that still clung to her.
Sarah, we know this is difficult, but we need your help. We need to understand what happened to you. Where were you all this time?
Sheriff Davis, his face a mask of professional detachment, sat across from her, a tape recorder whirring softly on the table between them. He paused, allowing his words to hang in the heavy silence, his eyes searching hers for any sign of recognition, any flicker of understanding.
The woods! He took me to the woods!
He? Who's he, Sarah? Can you tell me his name?
The sheriff leaned forward, his gaze intent. He knew he was treading on thin ice, that Sarah's grip on reality was tenuous at best, but he needed to break through the wall of fear and trauma to uncover the truth buried deep within her fragmented memories.
He has no name. He's something else, something not human.
A cold knot of apprehension tightened in the sheriff's gut. He had seen his fair share of trauma in his years on the force, but there was something about Sarah's demeanor that chilled him to the core.
Sarah, can you describe him? What did he look like?
Big. He was big, covered in hair like an animal.
The sheriff felt a shiver run down his spine. He had heard the whispers, The legends whispered around crackling fires, creatures that were both man and beast, ancient and powerful. Deep down, a seed of unease had been planted. Sarah continued, her voice barely a whisper, each word a struggle against the unseen forces that held her captive.
He kept me in a cave. It was dark, damp.
Her body trembled, racked with a fresh wave of terror. The sheriff's mind raced, piecing together Sarah's story. He knew the woods surrounding Havenwood had dismissed the whispers of strange creatures.
What did he want?
He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. He held his breath, dreading the answer.
He said I was chosen.
The blood drained from the sheriff's face. The legend, the whispers he had dismissed, suddenly seemed terrifyingly real. Dr. Henry sighed, the weight of Sarah's case pressing down on him like the ancient mountains surrounding Havenwood. He had been the town's physician for over 40 years, but nothing had prepared him for this. S5 as Dr. Henry. I've known Sarah since she was a child. To see her now, her spirit broken, it cuts me to the core. The physical evidence was irrefutable, the pregnancy test kit lying on his desk. But the how, the why, gnawed at his rational mind. S5 as Dr. Henry. They spoke of delusion, of phantom pregnancies. But I've seen the fear in Sarah's eyes. Something dark and sinister has taken root in our midst. News of Sarah's pregnancy spread through Havenwood like wildfire, whipping up a maelstrom of emotions that threatened to tear the small town apart. Disbelief warred with fear, skepticism with a growing sense of unease. The impossible had happened, a truth so monstrous, so improbable, that it shattered the very foundations of their reality. The older generation, their memories steeped in folklore and whispered legends, saw Sarah's ordeal as a confirmation of their deepest fears. They spoke in hushed tones of ancient prophecies, of creatures that walked the line between man and beast, their very existence a challenge to the natural order of things. The woods, once a source of comfort and sustenance, now loomed large in their minds, a dark and menacing presence that held their fate in its unseen hands. The younger generation, raised on a steady diet of logic and reason, struggled to reconcile the impossible truth with their modern sensibilities. They spoke of hallucinations, of psychosomatic pregnancies, of the power of the human mind to create its own reality, however distorted and terrifying. But even their skepticism was tinged with a growing sense of unease, a gnawing fear that something wicked had taken root in their midst. The town, once a bastion of unity and shared values, found itself fractured, the social fabric stretched thin by suspicion and mistrust. Neighbors eyed each other with newfound suspicion, their conversations laced with doubt and thinly veiled accusations. The truth, whatever it may be, seemed to elude them, lost in a fog of fear and speculation. Sheriff Davis, a man accustomed to dealing with the harsh realities of life and death, found himself caught in the crosshairs of a mystery that defied all logic and reason. The evidence, as scant and circumstantial as it was, pointed to a truth too monstrous to contemplate. Sarah's testimony hinted at a darkness that lurked at the edges of their reality.
I've spent countless hours poring over Sarah's case files, interviewed and re-interviewed witnesses, but the forest yields nothing but dead ends and unanswered questions.
The rational part of him screamed to dismiss Sarah's claims as the ramblings of a traumatized mind. But deep down, a seed of doubt had been planted, a chilling premonition that the truth would be far stranger. As the weeks turned into months and Sarah's pregnancy progressed with an unnerving normalcy, a palpable sense of dread settled over Havenwood. The initial shock and disbelief had given way to a quiet acceptance, a grim acknowledgement that their lives had been irrevocably altered, their reality irreparably fractured.
Sarah, her physical health slowly recovering, remained trapped in a prison of her own mind. Her memories a jumbled mosaic of fear and confusion. She would sit for hours, staring out the window, her gaze fixed on the imposing silhouette of the woods, her silence speaking volumes about the horrors she had witnessed, the secrets she could not or would not reveal.
Mark, his love for Sarah unwavering, found himself torn between his desire to protect her and his need to understand the truth. He watched helplessly as the woman he loved slipped further away with each passing day, her laughter silenced, her spirit crushed under the weight of an unspeakable truth. The town held its breath, caught in a state of uneasy anticipation, bracing for a storm they could not see, a reckoning that seemed both inevitable and impossible. The woods, silent and watchful, held their secrets close, their dark embrace a constant reminder that some truths are best left undisturbed, that some mysteries are beyond human comprehension. And in the heart of it all, the unborn child grew, a terrifying symbol of the darkness that had seeped into their world, a living, breathing embodiment of their worst nightmares. Spring arrived in Havenwood like a hesitant whisper, a tentative promise of renewal after the long, dark winter. The snow receded, revealing the scarred earth beneath, and the trees gradually unfurled their new leaves. Sarah, her body drained, seemed almost indifferent to the newborn in her arms. The baby, oblivious to the weight of expectation, slept peacefully. The town, holding its breath, waited for answers that would never come. The weeks that followed the birth were a blur of sleepless nights and whispered anxieties.
Mark, his love for Sarah unwavering, found himself thrust into the role of a single father.
The sheriff had made no progress in uncovering the truth behind Sarah's ordeal.
The mystery of Sarah's disappearance had metastasized into a festering wound in the heart of their community. Years passed, and the seasons turned in Havenwood, their familiar rhythm a counterpoint to the unsettling silence. Sarah found a fragile peace in caring for her son, her love for him a beacon of light in the darkness. Mark had become a pillar of strength for Sarah and their son. He had learned to navigate the whispers and the sideways glances. He accepted that some truths may never be fully revealed. The town, scarred but not broken, had learned to live with the unease. The woods remained a brooding presence, their secrets guarded jealously. The boy grew into a young man, his existence a testament to hope. He bore the weight of his birthright with quiet dignity. The truth of those lost months in the mountain remained elusive. Beneath the starlit sky, the people of Havenwood felt watched, a chilling reminder that some secrets are best left undisturbed.